Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for the Expanse Season 4 Episode 5, Oppressor. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of the Expanse, so I have to start with a spoiler warning for the Expanse up to Season 4 Episode 5. If you haven't seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, this is a pretty interesting. Again, I think this season is shaping up to be really good. Now, it's not mind-blowing yet. I'm hoping it will get mind-blowing later on, but it's been really solid. There hasn't really been a bad or weak episode in the batch. So, this episode starts off with, you get the flashback to when, Lucia was with the other Belters and they set the bomb, and you see the story has she didn't want to actually kill anyone. The ship came early and she was just going to destroy the pad so they wouldn't send the ship, and so when she saw the ship was coming, she was against it. She wanted to stop it, but the other Belters like Coop wouldn't let her, knocked her out, and forced them to blow up the ship anyway. Now, as a sidetrack, I gotta say, like, every time I saw Coop, particularly in the first two episodes when he appeared, if you don't know who Coop is, he's that Belter who was in that scene who forced her to set up the bomb. And in the earlier episodes, he got shot, like Mercury shot him because he was being a dick. He looks so familiar to me. Like, the entire time I was watching it, I was like, God damn, has this guy been in the show before? Have we seen this character before? Because it's not just the actor looked familiar, the character looked familiar. But, I looked up on the IMDb and I finally figured it out. He hadn't been in this show before. This is the first time he was in the show, but he was on Vikings. And he played a very similar character who was an asshole. I think it was on the Floki's island, and he was being an asshole to Floki. Well, Iceland, basically, when they first settled it. And, but the thing is the guy looks so similar. Like, the makeup and everything is very similar to Vikings because of the sort of tattoo markings and the way he has his hair, and so it makes me think that it made me realize that the Belters kind of look like Vikings, and his whole demeanor and the way he's a giant asshole too. But anyway, that's a bit of a sidetrack. But that was an interesting way to start the episode with the flashback that made it clear and sort of explored Lucia's demons throughout the episode, it was a good character beat for her, because so far I think they hadn't really explored this character very much. So it's good seeing her sort of deal with the consequences, and then when she almost died from her wounds, she refused to get help, and she was telling Alex not to save her because she believed she deserved to die. And that flashback was very good at explaining why she feels that way, because we see that she is a good person and she never intended to kill anyone, and how those deaths weigh very heavily on her conscience. And seeing her come to terms with that and eventually helping Alex to save her, that was really touching. That was a really powerful scene. And then you get the conversation with her husband, who didn't make her feel any better. Like, the conversation after she talked to him is kind of when she just thought she should die, because he was, understandably very upset that she participated in that act of terrorism, and now because of that she has to hide in the ship in the space away from their family, and of course their daughter's missing. And this is still a big question mark that's not answered in this episode. What happened to the daughter? Where'd she go? They assume that Mercury has her. Mercury kills her, but Mercury is insistent he didn't. And be frank, I'm actually inclined to believe Mercury. I don't think that's the deal. But anyway, it was a very interesting story beat, and of course having Naomi sort of try to relate to her with her own backstory. And of course we heard this story several times before in the show. We heard it in season 2. Naomi told Prax when he was looking for his missing daughter about how she had a son who was missing, and then in season 3 she went in a bit more detail when she confessed to Holden that she had a son with another man previously, and he had stole him from her. Here, I think we go into the most detail yet. And of course, this is touched on in the previous episode when Ashford was talking to the man in question who stole her son away. So this has come up a lot this season. But we got her side of it in much more detail about how she tried to kill herself. Now, I might be getting the book and the show confused, mixed up in my head. As far as I'm concerned, I don't believe they ever revealed that part of it in the show. I think I know about that from reading the books, that she was so depressed after she lost her son that she tried to kill herself. I'm pretty sure they didn't mention this in the show. I could be wrong, but I think I'm just remembering that from the books. But that was really interesting, the way she's told that story to Lucia to relate to her. Like, Lucia kept saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry," but she's like, "I'm not saying this to get your sympathy. I'm trying to import to you, like, teach you a lesson, or have my life experience sort of reflect what you're currently going through, and that it's not worth ending your life over." And the funny thing is that and the whole thing about destroying the ships, this is a new information for the show, I think, as well. I'm pretty sure they kind of hinted at this in the previous episodes, but yeah, I think that's new information as well, that Marco used her to destroy those UN ships. And so Lucia's like, "No, it's a totally different situation because he tricked you." But it's not, actually. Naomi doesn't know this, so she can't argue back. But she was also forced by Coop and those other guys. She never wanted to kill anyone either. So actually the situation's a lot similar. She's just refusing to see it because she just wants to beat herself up. So I thought that was a really powerful story. And having Alex have that connection to her and like really comforting her and not giving up on her, that was really powerful too. I think, and I'm just remembering now that Alex was hitting on her earlier. But this seems like a more sort of, God damn it, I'd hate it if they do a romance, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to. It seemed like a more sort of nurturing, caring connection that he had with her, which I think really worked. So on Illis, on the planet, it starts off with Holden like just charging in with a gun and demanding to get Amos back, and he almost got into a firefight with Way. It's funny that Amos is like, "Oh, don't kill her. She just doesn't realize that her boss is an asshole yet." But they were right ready to draw on each other until Mercury showed up and was just like, "Yeah, sure. Let Amos go," because Holden was saying they should evacuate the planet. And Mercury's all for that because he wants to get rid of the Belters. And the Belters don't want to go because they know that Mercury just wants to get rid of him. And it's, and I actually can't blame them. They are wrong about Holden. We, the viewer, know this because they say, "Oh, I don't know if you're using Mercury, if Mercury's using you, but you're just doing what his bidding." But it's not either way. Like, Mercury, you could say Mercury's using Holden, but really, Holden is not being. He has this vital information that these both sides are refusing to see because they're too engulfed in their own petty squabbles, and this is what Holden sees. And this is what I was saying before about how Holden, in the earlier parts of the season, actually, I think this is actually quite good, seeing how this story is developed throughout the season, because in the earlier episodes of the season, Holden was off doing his own thing and totally blind to all the squabbling going on, but now he's caught up in the squabbling and he can't ignore it, but he still sees it as, I think he still kind of refuses to see how important it is. He just sees it as nonsense squabbling because in his mind he knows about the protomolecule and Miller, and it's like, well, you're all going to die anyway, so you're fighting over a death trap because all this alien shit's coming alive, so it's dumb. And he's not wrong. I can definitely, not going to say that he's wrong, but I think he definitely still is not in the mindset of just how important it is. Like, we, the viewer, can know because we had that opening scene in the first episode that showed all the bullshit that these colonists went through in order to get there, and how they, or UN is basically just trying to get rid of them, trying to kick them off, and they feel like they never have any recourse. So you can there is that strong feeling of wanting, of why they would want to stay, and they'd be so desperate that they'd even take hostages. Of course, what I like about this situation is that even though Mercury's clearly an asshole, he's clearly the villain of the show. Those guys, those Belter guys who took or those security guys hostage, they're not much better. And what I like about this situation is that both sides have valid viewpoints. All three sides, I should say, because Holden, I already talked about, was a very valid viewpoint. But the RCE, as much as Mercury's an asshole, they do have a valid viewpoint. They were attacked, and their men are being held hostage, and so you kind of root for them to get their men back. Although, obviously, Mercury was in the wrong for just going around killing all the Belters, but then again, the Belters were also clearly in the wrong for blowing up the thing and destroying the ship and taking hostages. But they both have valid viewpoints to how the Belters want a home, and they feel like this is just the way to get. And they're correct that if they leave, there's no way anyone's going to ever let them return. But Mercury also has, or at least his team has, the valid viewpoint of the fact that their men are being held hostage and they're being attacked on one end. So that's what I like about it. There's a lot of ins and outs, a lot of dynamic. Then again, Mercury's trying to forcibly remove them, so it does sort of make him a bit more in the wrong. But it's still very interesting, very dynamic situation, and it's great. This is like new territory this is a basic kind of great storytelling you expect from The Expanse, but to see this play out on a planet like this in this specific circumstance is a new direction for the show, which I love. I love that they're keeping things fresh and just not repeating the same beats they did before. And to be honest, like in the books, book 4 felt kind of like a repeat of book 3, a little bit in terms of format, and I talked about this in my review of the book 4, but the show, this feels like something totally different. So the translation of the show is managing to make it feel fresh. So I think it's really good. I do really appreciate that. And then, of course, you have LV Okoye keeps pestering Holden because she can tell that he's holding something back and it's starting to irritate her. And eventually Holden decides to confess to all sides over, advice from Naomi. So he confessed to the two large groups trying to attack him. I don't think that was a smart move. I really don't think confessing that an alien is talking to him and he's seeing images of a dead man telling him about this stuff. Maybe not the best way to calm everyone down, and we see that it doesn't actually work. I think it probably would have been better to just tell LV in private. Just my thinking. But anyway, let's talk about... So we got no Bobby Draper storyline in this episode. We got no Ashford and Drummer storyline in this episode. That's pretty interesting. I think both those storylines, especially after Ashford and Drummer, that seems to be done, but I have a feeling they're going to revive it a bit later in the season. But those storylines don't have as much meat on them, so I like how the focus is more on Illis. But we do get an Avasarala storyline in this episode where she's having her little debate. And I'm sorry, I can't help but actually during the debate side with Nancy Gow and actually think that she's right, especially over basic, because the whole concept of basic is of something that is of a blemish on Earth. Now they always say that it's a necessity because the population is too high and what are you going to do? There's nothing we can do about it. But I thought it was kind of despicable of Avasarala to try to shame her for coming off of basic and using tools. And I thought that Nancy Gow's retort, her sort of, her hit back on Avasarala was actually spot on. I thought that was actually quite good, which is, I find it a bit ironic that someone born into aristocracy is trying to put me down for having connections. I was like, ooh, burn. She's actually almost totally right. That was a cool hit. Although I did like earlier in the debate where, asking about Eros and Nancy Gow tried to spin all this bullshit, and Avasarala was like, I saved Earth from the arrows, bitches, and if another incident like that, I'll just do what I did before. Like, that was a mic drop moment. But then, of course, later on, Nancy Gal came back, and yeah, I gotta say, I actually side with her more, because she says that's why she pushed for colonization into these worlds, because that's a way they could relieve the effort and give everyone who's just sitting around on basic jobs something to do, not just the colonists who leave, but because people are leaving, that will free up more stuff to do on Earth. So yeah, I mean, so I would vote for her. But as a viewer of this show, I know that there's dangers that she's not taking into account, that Avasarala is taking into account. And so Avasarala is actually correct for being cautious, and to send all those people out, you could be sending them to the deaths, and it might not be the smartest thing to do. But damn, Nancy Giles, that's a good politician. I'm going to vote for her. Anyway, I love how the show handles politics too. I love this It's so realistic and relevant to politics. That's what a lot of people forget about the show. It's not just about science and sci-fi action or being scientifically accurate. It also has a lot of social political statements that are very allegorical to real life and very relevant and very realistic and very well done. So absolutely love it. And then of course we get the ship that is coming towards Earth and is going to attack their asteroid defense system, and that freaks Avasarala out. There's a fake recording. Well, we don't know it's fake. I'm assuming maybe it is. It's saying that it's just a colony ship with women and children. Please don't fire. But then again, why are they on a collision course that will cripple Earth's defenses? That is a very, very dubious story. It reminds me of the Deep Space Nine episode where Worf was accused of killing a civilian ship with Klingons, but then you find out it was just a plant from the Klingon government to make him look bad that the ship was actually empty. And yeah, so I think that was a very obvious plan, because we know what we know with the Marco Inaris storyline. It makes you kind of wonder if he's kind of involved in this somehow. Because we know that he's trying to fight against Earth, but I don't know. Maybe not. We'll have to see. Yeah, I think she definitely made the right call, but it hurts her politically. Now that I disagree with. I think that shouldn't hurt her politically, but that's politics for you, and sometimes people standings get hurt for doing the right thing, which is really interesting. So anyway, my rating for Oppressor out of 10, I think I'm going to give this an 8 as well. An 8, extremely good. I think this is another good, solid episode. A lot of great character moments. A lot of great interactions that pushes the story forward. As I said, this season has been pretty solid so far. I mean, if they really stick the landing to the end, this could be one of the best seasons ever, but I've already talked about that on my channel. I just don't know about that yet. It's the future for me, because I'm recording this like a couple of weeks before I actually released it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out my channel as I cover the Expanse even more. I'll do my book to show comparison on this episode in a few days, and next week I will jump into episode 6. So be sure to check out my channel as I cover many other shows like Star Trek and more, so be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all that. And thanks a lot for watching.